the mice running around in the wheel.
Okay, shall we make a
mouse?
You have, is it this one?
No.
What about Martin? Can I let it get over
I haven't heard from Martin.
there.
If he was coming by car, he lives in Woodsbury, maybe he
This
should
must be yours as well.
Yes.
Right, folks, can I suggest we make a start? Good morning, welcome to everybody.
Morning.
This is the Standing Orders Working Group meeting. And first of all, can I introduce Mr. Bob Scruton, who will be doing something in public participation, but also we would like to use your skills and your expertise, because you've got played a prominent role in both CALC and NALC. Right. Okay, running through this first of all, Councillor Pennington may be delayed, but I don't think it's appropriate to wait. We've got a lot to get through in the next few hours. Any particular declarations of interest?
No, but I'm just going to ask Chair, are you happy for it to be run as a previous meeting on an informal basis and we can call each other by our first names rather than...
Oh yes, I mean that's our modus vivendi in this one, or modus operandi even. For those who still remember their dog Latin at school. Yeah, that's the way we work. Well, just for, we call each other Fred, Bill, whatever, if that's all right with you. Okay. Yeah. And now, first of all, then, the next thing is, I circulated some minutes. I had some suggestions for a change to the minutes, I think, from yourself, Nicholas, and I think it's from yourself.
From myself, yes.
I sent a second lot out. Are they acceptable?
Yeah.
Please for record. Thank you. Okay. We now have a session on public participation. Christina, do you wish to make any comments as part of the public participation? And then we will again continue as we did before, which is inviting you to participate with information, questions and advice as we did last time.
I'm quite happy to just contribute as the conversation progresses. I would like to tell you though that the live stream is working.
Good.
And we have got 6 people viewing.
More than in the room, really.
Which, amazing. And this is the first time that we're running the live stream on SanMat 2, which means that you don't have to be a member of a Facebook group to be able to view it, because previously the hosting had restricted access and some people felt that actually they wanted to access it but they didn't want to join a group. So now we are moving into that zone where they don't have to.
That sounds good. Well,
Give a bit of shout out to Diana Jones, who is facilitating this, so I'd like to say thank you, Diana. I know there's been teething problems, but it's great that it's working today.
Yes, the more people that can see what council meetings and working groups are doing, I think the better. Of course, we've got to be on our best behaviour now. I'm sure we will be.
Can I ask, are they able to text in comments that you can see of any points that they want raising at the meeting?
They would normally be able to do that, but we haven't tested that in SanMat 2 yet.
Okay.
So we will see as the meeting progresses. Either comments will appear or they won't.
I think we may have a slight protocol issue about comments coming in. Personally, I don't have an issue, but I don't think our standing orders have any capability of handling comments coming in by video link.
Morning.
Oh, good morning.
I can tell you that actually comments are possible, because the first person has commented saying, "Be on your guard."
I wonder why.
I'm not saying, you can look at the comments later.
It as we see fit.
I hope it's not my wife.
No, she's got a much better tracking device, I can assure you. Okay, thank you. Bob, is there anything you want to tell us in advance of the detailed discussions?
I think it probably have more helpful comments as you go through the detail. My overriding view on this is it's good to update standing orders in a better way. The cost of doing that is that I suspect you're taking on yourself the responsibility for keeping that up to date. And also, if you want to phrase things in a different way, making sure it's clear which bits in here are statutory and which bits are the way you want to operate.
Yeah.
And that's not straightforward.
No.
And it's quite a big overhead. So as long as you're happy that that cost is worth it for the benefit.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think on the first point about the statutory elements, Nick's done a draft for us and he's made very clear to us which elements by in bold text are statutory elements, so we should be able to pick most of those up. You did say you were going to have another review to check that nothing had slipped between the cracks, and we can come on to that later on. I think what our objective is to try to have some kind of, almost a document map like this. I don't know if you've seen that video drew that up. And it really is to have a core and then parts attachment, but we only have to amend a part that's attached rather than the core.
I suppose I would say you could still do that while still using the NALC model, because that will be a component.
Okay, I think we haven't come to an absolutely final conclusion on that, but we've been working through the draft that they've been provided, because the documents we have at the moment have accumulated over the decade, probably, are a complete and utter mishmash.
I totally agree with that. Standing order is probably the one that isn't.
Beg to differ on that.
Because it has always followed the NALC model, which is designed to be able to be used by all council.
I see. Okay, there's a subtle difference between the way now defines standing orders and the way that this council has decided to put documents in and call them standing orders.
Our current standing orders, as Bob said, very much follow the NALC model, but there are changes and alterations to it.
But the NALC model has in itself certain bits, and one of the things we talked about last time was whether you have to stand.
Yes.
In the NALC model, there are two options. You either say you stand, or you raise your hand, and the council chooses which it would prefer to use. So those sort of things are already built in that model. That's why. And if you want to give me an example where I've only had a fairly quick look at what we've got here. When I read it, although the proposed new version clearly allows for subcommittees, and I think it's fairly clear subcommittees are a committee of a committee.
Yeah.
There isn't a subcommittee of a council. Although they're allowed for, there's some sections, I think about giving notice and perhaps quorum, they don't mention subcommittees. So there's.
Oh, there is a lot of tidying up we need to do and linking together, and this is what we're seeking to do initially, so we have a proper framework and then move on. Whether it's this working group or whether other working groups then pick up the baton up is as yet undecided. Okay, thank you. Right, if I can move on then, please. Right. We did some work. We were all asked to look at the draft that you had produced and add comments as we go along. So can I suggest that we move straight on to that part of the business and take it from there?
Yep. And obviously people who are watching are at a slight disadvantage in that the document, and this is very much a navigation through a set of documents. They're on a screen which the camera isn't pointed towards, so I think apologies to anybody who's viewing. They might lose some of the context about why we're staring into the distance and why we're commenting against something that they can't see. It's
But it is the document that went with the agenda.
yes.
Which I think was the problem last time. We were talking about documents that weren't attached to that agenda.
Right.
Okay, I'm just conscious that we're on page 1 here, and I think we might want to use that as an opportunity to put in what we would see about the revision history and version control, who drafted the document, when it was adopted by council, when it is to be reviewed and so forth. So what I would like to just maybe suggest is that we could put a table in here with the document control information on.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
certainly.
Happy to do that.
So if I can delete everything that's there at the moment and insert a table, let's say with about 5 rows.
Yeah. Look like all documents are looking at work.
So if we can put a date on one side, on the version
Yeah.
on the other side, drafted. What are the titles that we want to have here now? Drafted, reviewed, adopted by the council, next review.
Next review due, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
drafted, reviewed, adopted.
When we say reviewed,
Yes.
who are the reviewers?
Yeah. So that's additional.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I can help you slightly there.
Yeah.
As part of the AGAR, and then I'm struggling to remember what all those words letters mean, and it's the annual governance and probably accounting review, which is part of finalising last year's accounts. I think you have to review these sort of things.
Yeah.
At the moment, the standing orders say that you would review it at the annual town council meeting.
Right.
And that is different from the governance and accounting review.
Because then,
Yeah.
I think the AGAR could just say this document was reviewed
And
on
adopted
the
again. Yeah.
annual town council meeting,
Yeah.
so we're happy it has been reviewed.
Yeah, there was a town clerk yesterday evening at another meeting that I was at, was referring to this process and that the council has to formally accept what's presented. So is what you're saying, this would be a sensible document to form part of that process. Yeah.
Okay, so could I suggest that under reviewed, that needs to be at the annual town council meeting, and then just leave blank date, just so we don't get people asking, well, when is it due to be reviewed?
What it would also do is protect the fact that we need to review it, and it then will show we have reviewed it. So it forces us to do it each year rather than it just sitting in a library.
Right, okay, adopted by the council, and then next review due, just put, oh, so just say due. Due,
The next annual town council meeting.
well, just due, yeah. When we say date, standing order working group June 23, right, okay. Do we need to put anything about authors or anything like that?
Well, I've put drafted by the Standing Orders Working Group for
Yeah.
23.
Okay.
And then people want to know who was on that because,
Yes.
you know, the number of people who were involved may change and,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Okay.
All right?
Yep, that's
Okay,
fine.
so-
All happy?
Well, there's only one knock-on problem, and that's in this set of standing orders. You deleted reviewing the standing orders of the annual town council meeting, or didn't carry it over into this. But we'll come to that when we come to the annual town council meeting in here.
Section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Well
you.
spotted.
Right. Next suggestion, Peter?
Well, I think if we can then move down through the document.
Yeah.
I don't propose at this stage that we want to go over the changes that we made
No.
last time. So I think we got down to Did we get down to the structure of the council? No, the last one was 232.
Proper
officer,
232, yes,
232.
232.
Yeah.
Right. Fine.
Yeah.
Right.
You could, sorry, just going back if you could, 215, what was 215? You did ask me to look at this and review what, this is the chair's role.
Yeah.
Because there was some discussion about whether actually any of this is required. And some of it is probably not actually correct or acceptable. Have you had a look at
There's
that?
no static.
There's no static vote.
So it's what you want the chair to do.
It's what we want, yeah, I mean, at the moment, standing orders make no mention of this, or very little mention of it. In the terms of schedule of delegation terms of reference, there's a very short section saying the role of the chair is, which is basically just three things: the chair meeting, to deal with civic things, and that's about it.
Yes.
And do we want to specify this? Because this is in addition to anything that the now model says, and I don't know whether we actually want to.
So do we want to decouple the role of the mayor
Yeah.
from the chair?
Sorry. That point is absolutely clear.
Yes, you can't.
No,
The
let's
chair-
go and say we can't.
The legislation says
Yeah.
you will elect a chair.
Yeah.
Because you're a town,
Anyway,
you may,
You know.
but you need not call your chair
the mayor.
a mayor.
And
And that is it.
That's it.
That you can't do anything else. So the mayor is the chair.
But you may not need to call him
the chair.
the chair.
Yeah.
Well, you may not need to call him the mayor.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying, yes.
Well, yeah.
You will.
You will
because
call him
of
the
history,
mayor.
yeah.
Okay.
And in a perfect world, I would argue that a historic town like
Yes.
Sandwich
Should continue.
could have a ceremonial mayor,
Yes.
because there's lots of things that the mayor gets involved with, and a business chair, to,
Yes.
what might be called a leader in a bigger council,
Yeah.
to actually get the business done, with the chair going and doing the stuff, but that's not what the legislation.
We cannot do that.
No.
Well, it's not something, we could do it, but we should bother.
I wish we could.
Yeah.
It seems that the legislative position is that the mayor has the chair,
Yeah.
has to be the chair of the.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But
Well,
do
the
we,
chair of the council has to exist,
Yes.
and you can call the chair a mayor if you want.
But there's
Do-
nothing to
do-
say that you couldn't have a mayor who is not the chair. Because a lot of local authorities have that, a lot of large
Not local councils, as in parish and town.
not parish and
Parish
towns, cities and so on,
district,
district and county
yes,
can
they
have.
can and they do.
Yeah, which
So
things
Nick,
like,
from your perspective, what are we trying to solve here? Because we could spend
Yeah,
quite a while.
do we want to set out in detail roles of the chair?
Well, I mean, it seems to me superfluous to say that the job of the chair is to chair meetings.
Yeah, and that's really it.
so,
But if we want to be clearer about what this person is doing in terms of their role as chair and what they're doing in terms of their role as mayor, I don't know if we would want to make a difference. I mean, the ceremonial duties, we need to specify what they consist of.
well,
No, I don't think we
I
do.
don't think we
I
do.
don't think it's got it, I don't think
I
that's
think
got any role in standing orders to do that.
the ceremonial duties of the mayor.
But do we want to specify as we do here, ahead of what the chair will do, or
Well, is the role of the chair specified elsewhere? If it is, then it is unnecessary to have this full sentence 215. Or you'd have to say the council will elect the vice chair in the event that the chair is not available.
Well, in my line of thinking, what I did when I set this out, there is now the roles of the different people, whether they are the town clerk or the
Yeah.
responsible officer, the responsible finance officer, the role of councillors. Yeah, so they are, in my mind, should be standalone documents that people can go to, as opposed to having things in different locations, because that then causes ambiguity and confusion.
We have our terms of reference and schedules of delegation, which has got a section in it which says duties of the mayor and deputy mayor.
Yeah.
And to my mind, that is sufficient, and I don't think we need that in our standing orders.
So,
I would agree, and the danger of setting it out in this detail is the implication that anything on this that isn't on here, the chair can't
Yeah,
do.
agree.
Yes.
so,
So likely to be challenged.
Agree.
do we just say then, the council will elect a vice chair in the event the chair is not available? Just leave it as simple as that.
You say
No,
that,
we
you
elect the vice.
say that in 216. The chair will appoint a vice chair.
Okay?
The council will also appoint a vice chair. Who will
Oh, sorry, we're looking at a different document,
who
sorry.
will,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Who
we
will-
changed that to
who
that.
will fulfil the roles of the chair in the event the chair is not available.
Yes.
That we changed it to, yeah.
I think that's fine.
I think it is fine. Now, I think 215 can come out completely. Is that agreed?
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So you put
We
the
struck it through last time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little bit lost. It wasn't the structure.
Well, remember we deleted it.
I'm proposing we delete 215.
All of this A, B, C
A down
rows.
to K.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the old 2-1, okay, sorry,
Yes.
I was working on
Yeah,
the
we
new
did
version.
strike it.
Yes, on the new version, it's struck out completely.
Oh, good, okay.
We struck it out so that
Nick can go
we
away.
didn't delete it,
Yeah.
so that Nick could check it.
Yeah.
And we could.
And so the agreement now is that we will delete what was the former 215, which has got the mayor and deputy mayor will be elected,
Correct.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
And A2K, so we're in view that that should be deleted, thank you, right?
yeah.
And then, we then have to do a bit of renumbering at some stage, because if 214's come out, then the 215 on here becomes 214.
Having lived with doing things like this before, may I suggest that where you're deleting in the meeting, instead of deleting, you highlight in a colour.
This
So
is-
that can be done later.
This is what
Otherwise, you're going to be,
we've done through track changes.
yeah, but that re-numbers things.
It does.
Whereas if you highlight it, it will be deleted later. You can deal with the automatic renumber won't confuse you later.
Yeah, I think if, I think when this is presented to council, we need to be clear to council what we have done.
Yes.
That the document that we propose to council will be compared with the existing standing orders, not with the draft that we
Yeah,
started with.
yeah. Yeah.
Does track changes renumber things?
It does.
If you accept
Yeah,
them.
if you
But only-
delete something, it
Only if you
automatically.
accept them. It'll only change if you accept it. At the moment, well, on this, we've still got 214 and 215.
Well, I'm quite happy to go through the document, just as we've done there. If we've struck it through, that's an intent to delete. People
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
still read it. There's no need to
Yeah.
put a colour highlight on it,
Yes.
type of thing. So maybe.
Okay.
Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll work back through what we did last week.
Mm-hmm.
Before I circulate the document to the minutes, and just put those things that we deleted as struck through. Yeah?
And I think when you produce the final, it's less important.
Yeah.
What I know from bitter experience in the past, working through a document like this and taking it out, then everybody refers to different numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can I say, this document is not the standing orders as existing at the moment.
No.
This is a
Yeah.
different document
Yeah.
that Nick has
Next
provided.
draft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
am well
it's-
aware of that.
Sorry?
I'm well aware of that because I'm trying to do a little bit of cross-reference.
Yeah, so do we need to do this? Because
For the time.
for my mind, I thought the process was we were going to go through this document and then we were going to review the standing orders to be able to compare and contrast the standing orders
And
with
ensure
this
that-
document. And at that stage, we can mark up the standing orders and put a note on them to say covered by
Yes.
section 214 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in trying to rewrite the standing orders document as is. This is the one we want to work to. So as long as we highlight the differences, I think that would suffice. Okay, can we move on?
So I can delete things in this document because this document isn't known to the
Could
council.
I, may I make a suggestion, don't delete them until we've got to the end. Otherwise we will have confusion.
That's what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
So I was saying if you,
Yeah.
things you intend to delete, if you highlight.
That's what I assumed. Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
moving on then. The next is, are we content with 216?
Yeah.
Right, so next one, section 2.2. Most of this is the legislation, in fact, all of it's the legislation by the bill. 2.3,
Although in some cases the wording is slightly different
is it?
to the one we currently have.
Oh, Nick, could you?
And one of the things that I didn't have time to check was whether the legislation is very specific with this wording, or both are an interpretation of legislation. That's an
So it's
exercise
a
worth
I
doing.
mean, I haven't been through this and checked it against the legislation to ensure whether the wording is. I've checked it against the mountain model,
Yes.
Right,
The latest version.
the latest version.
so,
And there are one or two, they're one of the changes I have come across where the wording is slightly different. But I can't tell you yet.
I don't know
I don't
whether
know.
that matters or not.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Thank you, Paul, yes.
so, Nick, could I ask then, would you be able to come back to the next meeting with a full view as to what does not link directly into the legislation?
I will try. What I would rather do is check that the wording accords with the mountain model.
Or if it doesn't quite.
Or if it doesn't work.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
To go through this and go through the legislation.
Yeah.
Yes,
is something
but
that
the legislation's got a paragraph here, a paragraph
I
there.
really would want to do. But if it accords with the mountain model, I think we can be satisfied, that's
Yeah.
all right. If it doesn't accord with the mountain model, I will let you know, we can decide why. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Full check now, okay. 2.3, anything in there? I've got a suggestion about 2.3.1. I would suggest we delete the word generally.
What we have.
We have here.
We have.
Why? Oh, sorry, I'm still, my apologies, I haven't got to the green bit, which is mine, sorry. Okay, so that means that really, we've got a whole wad of legislation again until we reach 233 F.
Sorry, you refer, go back up slightly.
Yeah.
You refer there to the responsible finance officer. I'm not sure that that's actually otherwise mentioned in the standing orders.
So the other ones mentioned,
The RFO.
In what sense, Bob?
I don't think it mentions an RFO in the standing orders.
so we should just say nominate another member of staff?
Well, no, but I think you ought to refer to the RFO in the standing orders,
Oh, I see.
which the Mount model does, but this version doesn't.
Sorry, where should it go? Where's the most logical place to put it?
Or given that we're talking about proper officers here, it would seem.
Well, do we need those words normally, the responsible finance officer?
But we're putting the sandwich name to this at the beginning,
Yes.
and the responsible finance officer is a recognised member of the Sandwich Council team type of thing.
Okay. So what's the view, folks? Do we, if this is our document and this is what we think Sandwich is appropriate for Sandwich rather, are we content with the 232 as amended by Peter?
So,
Well, I think so. I mean, everybody knows who the responsible finance officer is.
But it's very clear.
I think it's
I
clear.
don't know that it needs mentioning.
I'd rather have it in than not, because otherwise somebody will say, well, what's, who is the RFO, what role do they have? And here we've said here's one of the responsibilities is to deputise in the event of long-term absence or, we will deputise for the town clerk. We have had a situation, we very much hope that things are resolved this week with an open-ended contract for the town clerk.
Yes.
But we'll have notice periods and we will also have other issues.
so my question is a bit more fundamental in the sense of, is the role of the responsible finance officer including the expectation in the absence of those other people, it falls to them to normally do that role? That's what I'm struggling with. Or are we saying that actually they are not duty bound to have that as a responsibility? Because for me, I wouldn't state it if it's not an expectation that they do it. So does anybody have the answer that in terms of standing orders, we should look to the RFO to pick up that role?
Well, it depends on whether the RFO it is fully qualified as a town clerk. And if they're not fully qualified as the town clerk, it strikes me that they cannot undertake every single aspect, but they may be able to undertake many aspects.
It is normal practice for the finance officer to attend council meetings and take minutes in the absence of the town clerk.
But that does not require them to undertake the full duties.
No.
Does that answer the
Yeah.
question, Christine?
In terms of seniority, isn't the RFO second to the town clerk? In terms
Under the
of,
present structure,
is that, or because are they not both proper officers, but the RFO has a more limited remit? Is it, Bob?
I'm comfortable with either, but I think there are consequences if you want your RFO to act as town clerk for an interim period. I think it just means that either you cover that when they're recruited or you provide them with training. Or whatever.
That's a good point.
I honestly don't mind whether it's actually specified here or not, but as the discussion goes on, I think maybe it should be.
which should be, sorry.
That it should be specified.
Much
Should
of the
say the
legislation
responsible officer.
talks only about proper officers. And that there's no, so it's up to the council to decide what is a proper officer. And the response, I haven't looked at the legislation, but the guide on this calls it the responsible financial officer as a specific role that is involved with government, particularly financial.
Yeah.
And it's possible for the mayor, town clerk, but not the mayor, the town clerk or whatever the main officer, also to be the RFO. And obviously many smaller councils, they are. So those are titles.
Yeah.
Both are proper officers. If they're different people, they're separate proper officers, and they can do things that the legislation says a proper officer can do.
So I think the point that you're making, Bob, is right, and then what Martin has said. I think let's not get too hung up about this, because what we're saying is normally it would be the RFO, but I think there's possibly a training requirement or in the event that they might need to step up, but actually make sure that they're equipped to do it.
Can I say, in my previous council experience, the town clerk was the RFO, and if the town clerk was not available, we brought in an interim town clerk.
Yeah.
And the first thing on the agenda was that the council should accept
Yeah.
the appointment of the interim. But that would be a town clerk normally from the neighbourhood.
Yes.
Which that's still that.
Yes, but this still allows us to do
paragraph
so.
allows
But
And I personally wouldn't get too tied up about
No,
it.
no.
It's generally the reason you need clarity here is what happens if the town clerk isn't available, is that the loo's broken and somebody's got to get
Yes.
somebody in to deal with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Unless you've got somebody with authority, I don't need to be fully qualified town clerk. You just need somebody who has the authority to take the decision.
So, what is the conclusion? Is the conclusion that we don't use this at all, or is the conclusion in the short end that we would use the RFO to deputise for the town clerk, but recognising de facto, I read copy de jure, is that they do not have the full qualification?
I think we should leave it. It's flexible.
I agree.
I think it's a short-term fix. Should that occasion arrive, that the RFO, who is part of a small team, will be the person that probably would be asked to step up, but we would deal with it in that situation.
So it would help people if we said may nominate instead of shall nominate.
Well, we could do it in any other member of staff at the
I think
moment.
they have to nominate, so it should be shall. I would suggest
Shall.
Martin.
Right.
It's flexible.
And none of that was the point I was actually making. All I was saying is I'd be perfectly happy with that, with perhaps a little bit of tinkering. But we all in-standing orders to say that we will have a responsible financial officer,
Yes.
which we don't at the moment.
Okay. We'll need to come on back to that later.
Yes,
Can I just say, right, so this paragraph stays, this clause stays as it is, because it does say specifically, in the event of a long-term absence or resignation, an interim will be appointed.
Yes.
So there's no suggestion this is a long-term arrangement, this is a short-term. Can I also say, in the first line, you've got short-term absence rather
Very
than short-term.
true, yes. Well spotted.
Total quarterly. Right, okay, moving on.
So if we're being very, if we're being very precise, wouldn't vice chair also have a capital C for the chair? Sorry,
And I got up with that.
you've opened the gate.
Can I suggest that at some stage when you use your time wisely to focus on the principle. At the end of this, somebody needs to do a style consistency.
Because throughout the document, we a small C provide chair.
Well, and we'll need to find some willing volunteer who hasn't been involved in this, because believe me, you will go straight past it and once you should adopt it about total quarterly management rather than quantity management.
Never mind, you'll find it in 5 years' time when you review it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Moving on.
Yes.
Are we then content with 233, which again is a similar situation to the section above, because most of it comes from the novel as I understand it, Nick, yes?
Yes.
Do we want to put in working group there?
Where?
Please 3 days before a meeting of the council or a committee or a working group.
Generally, the problem you've got is that these are all statutory words.
Yes.
Committees and working groups have got different rules, subcommittees. At the moment, this is the area where when I got this far, there's no mention of subcommittees. Now they're not statutory, but you need to set out here what the all the information about
So it's an
subcommittees.
additional insert, but it wouldn't be in a form of statutory words because they don't exist, but we should have it in here to make sure that they're captured as an activity.
Yeah.
So the insert will not be in bold text.
Exactly.
It was
That's
that's,
the simple.
that's
yeah,
the difference,
yes,
isn't it?
I'm sorry?
The insert would be in lower, in standard text, not bold.
Oh yes, it's not bold text. Well, where do you want to put it? Is it under A, and just have an additional sentence in A in normal text?
Can I suggest,
Yeah.
you agree the principle,
Yeah.
do you want subcommittees to be subject to the same?
Yes.
I'm not convinced that we do.
Well, that's the good
Yeah.
point. I
Yeah.
suggest we discuss,
I'll give it
and then where it goes,
Yeah.
I think we can put it
So why
later.
do you think that, Ian?
Because I think as has been proved in the past 2 weeks, this is such a slow process,
Oh, yeah.
and at the moment we are having to move very quickly on certain things. Clearly, the committees and normal council meetings, there is no argument that the statutory situation applies. Do we really need for subcommittees and working groups to have this same level of bureaucracy?
I have a comment, and I hope it's Christina's view on this. It's all about engagement with our residents.
Yes.
And I am really, really interested in making sure, and I suggested at the last meeting, we should have a best practice, which is actually giving more time before these meetings are called. Because it's important that we get residents' participation in these discussions. And if we shorten it here, the risk is we're actually excluding people.
Yes, I understand that point. Christine?
And my understanding really of the working group model is that the intention is that it enables more participation from residents. If you don't give people enough notice, they're going to struggle to actually be able to attend. Okay, perhaps they might not have to give people might not have to give written notice of wanting to speak, perhaps. I mean, you could change that because people can participate during the course of the meeting, but give people enough notice of the meeting occurring is what I would say.
Well, what reviews of the rest of you? I mean, I'm very clear. I think that for subcommittees and working parties, the 3 days is a bit long. If you do insist on 3 days, then I think we have to retain Saturday as a working day, and I'm very firm on Saturday being a working day. I'm not prepared to move on that. What the rest of you feel?
And the NALC model, as you know, separates full council meetings, committee meetings,
Yes.
and stuff. Although they're set out in the NALC one as being statutory. And so they're all in bold.
Yes.
Yeah, but that one is committee meeting and it's set out in bold.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand is this, that there's this statement in here that says, unless the meeting is convened with shorter notice. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Because I think that is subcommittee, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm colour challenged, so the piece of paper we're looking at has got coloured dots
Yeah,
on it.
that's a committee meeting. Yeah, that's the orange.
Yeah.
Orange. Red, orange.
I
And
said
I
that
don't
we
understand.
previously flagged this
And I
contradiction.
don't understand this in the NALC model.
Yeah.
How can a meeting be convened at shorter notice?
It is contradictory, isn't
It
it?
is. It is.
Look back at the legislation, check.
No, I recall seeing this myself, and it is
And that's the one area I really need to go back and look at the legislation. I want to talk about the legislation.
okay. So, Christine.
The coloured dots do relate to the bits that are underpinned by different pieces of legislation. So there's 2 paragraphs there, and that second paragraph only applies to committees, and the one above it applies to full
Yeah,
council.
I know that, yeah.
Yeah.
But the one that applies to committee meetings says about unless the meeting convenes on shorter notice.
Yes, and that was challenged by an ex-councillor just a few months ago as not being correct. But I haven't referred back to the original legislation on that one.
So, who's going to check on?
But the model, the document you the councillor was using to challenge it was not colours. So he was
Ah.
not aware of the
Oh,
fact
right.
that it only replied to committee meetings.
Right.
That's the problem with the colour thing.
And that's why we
People end
decided,
up with not non-colour.
and we did decide at the last meeting that we would not go down the dotted colour coding route, precisely because most people print in black and white and it's pointless. There needs to be, if you need to differentiate, we have to find a different method to
Well, it's
differentiate.
quite simple. We've just put it in a table and we've got a column on the end,
Yeah.
Yes.
or two columns on the end, whether it's
Yes.
subcommittee or committee or full council.
Yeah.
So we have this issue about all shorter notice,
Yeah.
yes?
Yeah.
And we need to bottom this out.
Full council meetings have to have 3
3
days
days.
notice.
And
Committee meetings, as I understand it, are not statutory, so we can decide what notice is needed for committee meetings. We can also decide what notice is needed for subcommittee meetings or working parties.
Okay, who's going to pick that one up? Someone has to pick it up. You'll volunteer at once, Christina.
I'm not volunteering.
Christina
But, no,
volunteered.
no. But I think there may be a difference as to whether the committee, subcommittee, whoever is actually able to make decisions. If they are advisory only, then they are of a different level to one that is able to make decisions.
Okay, thank you.
So the planning
This is the
can
latest.
make decisions.
Gents, excuse me, can we have one meeting, please? Sorry, Christina.
Yeah, so the planning committee is actually able to make decisions, whereas I believe all the others are advisory in nature. You can disagree with me if you like, that's just my understanding.
I agree with Christina that there's a difference between an advisory committee. In fact, an advisory committee can, if there are circumstances where it can have no council on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's important that committees are able to make decisions, because I was appalled to come to a committee meeting here where somebody proposed a £50 expenditure on to full council, was asking for approval to spend £50 on a road sign. And I think decisions like that should be given by the Finance and General Purposes Committee. So I don't think all committees other than the planning are advisory, and if they are, we need to change it.
Well,
That's not a meeting, that's not a matter of standing orders, that's a meeting, that's a matter of the schedule of delegation and terms of reference as to what powers each committee has.
Right.
well, we need to
But
get.
they all need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, I interrupt the two of you. We're obviously discussing sort of. Do you want to share that with us? The points you were discussing, please.
Martin said, surely this is a legal question about period of notice.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, it's not, because as I understand it, according to the NAB model, the full council meetings have to have 3 days notice.
Yes.
Because I understand it, committee meetings, subcommittee meetings, and working party meetings can have whatever notice the council decides should be appropriate.
Okay. Now,
Although maybe it's something that we want to take to the council when you report back, Ian, and say, we would like to propose a shorter notice period for working groups, or we've debated it and we've decided to stick with the 3-day notice to be able to give more encouragement to the public to participate.
and this would be for committees, subcommittees, and working parties.
Yeah.
Well, no, for subcommittees, subcommittees, and working
Committees are
groups.
given. Yeah. It's subcommittees, which includes.
Yeah.
Committees
This draft we're working on
Yeah.
gives 3 days notice
Yes, for
for
committees.
council meetings and committees,
Yeah.
which maybe we think is appropriate or maybe we think is inappropriate. I don't know the answer to that.
A member of the public has just requested 5 days.
And that's right, that's where I went last time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
As a best practice,
You need to give proper notice,
yes,
3 days notice.
yes,
oh yes.
as a minimum.
Yeah,
But
that's-
sorry, I know we're spending quite a bit of time on this, but this is principle, isn't it? It's not
Yes.
about drafting.
Yes, yeah.
For me,
Yeah,
the whole point about is trying to improve our engagement with our residents.
yeah,
Giving them
absolutely.
more time allows them to be involved.
Absolutely.
And actually, best practice, a lot of these working groups, you can plan them out. You know, it isn't about we're in a dire situation, you have to have a working group meeting quickly. So actually you can plan, in my opinion, you can plan enough time in to actually give more than just the 3 days. But that's my personal view. And I've subscribed with the IT working group last night. We've given a 2-week period to the next meeting. So I will make sure that the agenda, etc., goes out 5 days in advance at least.
I would agree. I wouldn't like to see notice reduced less than 3 days.
Mhm.
Definitely not.
No.
I wouldn't personally.
And Peter, any views?
I agree with what Emmett's saying there. I think
Yeah.
full council meetings are known a year in advance. We've got a full timetable for all of the committee meetings and so forth.
Mm.
So it's only the extraordinary
Yes.
general meetings or full council meetings that would be subject to this, and whether you're kind of then saying you want to extend the notice to 5 days. If you need an extraordinary general meeting, you know, you need it as a matter of urgency, and I think people should be flexible and work to 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if there is to be a minimum time period, I would stick at 3 days, otherwise I think it's just,
But
it's
with the
confusing.
building in
makes
a
sense.
best practice.
Yes, you can
Statements.
indicate
Well,
best practice,
right.
would be to, if possible, to
Yeah.
publish the agenda
Well,
soon
let's
after the previous
let's
meeting.
not perhaps specify it, but just say that there's a minimum of 3 days and longer notice will be given where possible. And I think that allows that flexibility. But it does come back to this thing that I think we have to include Saturdays as a working day. And that's the end of it. Okay?
I'm
That's-
going to stick with this a bit. Sorry, I'll be defeated at some point, obviously. But I would like to, because it's about being transparent, it's about being clear, I would like a statement around best practice would, as a council, we would want to aim to issue papers, and I would suggest 5 days in advance. But the minimum requirement is 3 days now. I'm not trying to change that at all. I'm not trying to make 5 days as a minimum requirement. But I would like us to have a attitude that looks towards giving people more than 3 days.
As a member of the public,
Yeah.
I would say that there is a minimum period of 3 days
Yeah.
that the council would normally aim to do it within 5.
Yeah.
That's the
So
sort of thing.
I don't think you want to. There may be things that you really do need to get a meeting
Very
going
quickly.
short notice.
Yeah, I
And you
agree.
should go with the minimum.
Yes.
But normally you should go for.
Yeah, I have no problems at all with using things like normally.
Yeah.
But stick to the 3 days, and that's the absolute minimum, including a Saturday.
Okay.
Okay? Right.
Yeah.
Are you going to incorporate that?
I was just going to ask that, do you want me to put a paragraph at the bottom, notwithstanding the time periods and above, the council will endeavour to give 5 or 7
I
days
think we should make it.
as a matter of best
Yes.
working practice?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, best working practice is constantly being quoted, but I haven't seen any documentation of it. Sorry, I wasn't a total quality manager, and if you're going to say best practice, show me the evidence, please. You know, it may be good.
The evidence I've got here is feedback over a period of time from residents that they feel excluded from a range of meetings because of the tight timescales that we impose on us. And sometimes we feel it's urgent, we need to push on. So that's the evidence I've got.
I think that from my standpoint, I think we would say where we will seek to do this, that normally we'll have 5 days. I think if you start putting the words best practice in, you're creating a hostage to fortune, which you may not be able to sustain, and then somebody will say, well, where is the evidence?
Yeah, we don't need to.
I have seen excluding Saturdays as being best practice. I've seen it in writing. I'm not exactly sure where, but it was in an official guidance document, so I could go looking for it.
Well, it was, but I think at the moment, given the fact that sometimes we do need to move faster, and if we're prepared to extend the normally to 5 days, we must include the Saturday.
As a member of the public, can I say that I'm happy with that, but I think you ought to look at the amount of notice a member of the public has got to give to want to speak. I've not quite understood why a member of the public has to give notice so far in advance of the meeting.
You are completely right.
We've had this discussion last time, and we have this absurdity at the moment that people have to give notice to speak before the agenda, and they have to speak about the agenda, and the notice has to be given before the agenda is published. And that irritates the members.
Thank you for raising that. It's certainly one of the things I've been banging the table about for
those two things together.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give an example. The Heritage and Townscape agenda went out last night. So I first saw it this morning, and the cut-off for the public request to speak is 9 a.m. Friday. So the public have really been given, 24 hours? And that's if they spot that the agenda's been published. That could take a good few hours or a day or so.
But then isn't what the orders say, but that doesn't matter.
But I think it maybe we need to consider this in context of a wider approach about communication, because one thing that I've noticed ever since I joined this council, which isn't that long ago, there's a constant lack of communication with the public, and if we have a much better communication strategy, even in Woodsboro, they publish a magazine which gives the dates of council meetings, and I haven't seen that in
we have some way to go. Could we?
So I've put in just as a paragraph at the end of that list. The proper officer shall endeavour to give 5 days notice of meetings of the council, committee, subcommittee or working group.
Well, I'm not sure it's fair to put it on the proper officer.
No, I think
it's the proper officer is giving the notice up above.
Just the proper officers.
It is their
The
role.
proper officer shall.
Yes. It is their role. I would be content with that. Would others be content with that wording?
I can put that in for now, yes.
Yes.
officer.
Right, and thank you for your comment about members of the public giving notice. We actually do have that as an item dear to our heart. Right, can we move on? I'm conscious we've got an hour left, and we have enough of what
I should say less.
Not necessary. No. We need contributions from everybody. Okay. Right. Moving on now. So that brings us to 233. We're okay there. I just had one minus section under I, 233I. Just a suggestion, we're still calling it the personnel group, and I thought it was called a human resources committee.
Well, that is something that I think definitely has to be resolved. I don't understand the personnel subgroup.
No.
I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from.
Who's on it even?
It's a committee. My mind is committee.
Yes.
3 or 4 councillors getting together and meeting. There's a committee.
Yes,
I agree.
It's a committee.
I agree.
And it should be, I think we should restructure. It should be restructured as a human resources committee. And
Sometimes it gives a
we should
feeling
check on
of
the terms of reference, what
And
powers are
membership.
delegated to it, and who the members
Yeah.
of it should be.
Because if not, it gives a sense that it's sort of clandestine. It's
Yeah.
away from
Yes.
the governance model, and
Which was
that's
one of
not
the
what
problems.
we're not trying to present.
But that was one of the problems
Yeah.
in the past. I
I mean, it has met in the past.
yes.
Obviously, it met confidentially because it says HR matters are confidential, but it should meet at a proper meeting, and they should resolve at that meeting whether it be confidential or not.
Yes.
And I'm sure Christina agrees, putting her hand up.
Yes, and I wanted to say that not all HR matters are necessarily confidential, because
Yeah.
if you're reviewing HR policies, for instance, that's not personal.
Yeah.
That is something that could be done in the public domain.
Yes.
So,
I understand, so I listened to it, that at the annual town council meeting, the interim clerk said that she would be putting proposals to the May council meeting for an HR committee.
Yes, yes.
And I'd assume that was what happened at the confidential bit of the May council meeting.
Yeah,
We're not allowed to see what happens in the confidential. We don't know whether you discussed that or not.
We
No,
did.
it was not put in the proposal.
Right.
Okay.
But that
I
was a
think-
proposal that the interim town clerk
I
said.
think we're going to have to wait till we've got a full-time town clerk.
Yes.
I don't think the interim town clerk really hasn't got the time to be doing
No.
that.
Okay. Well, the only suggestion I would have then is just to perhaps I shouldn't have raised the issue, is that under section I to call it the HR committee, because it is a committee.
Yes.
Yes, Christina.
I just wanted to add, the way that it's structured is that it's the chairs of the Finance and General Purpose, the
Yes,
Heritage and
it is.
Townscape,
Yeah.
the Mayor and...
F&GP.
You said
Yeah.
everything,
Yes, but at the moment we don't have chairs for those
No,
two,
we
do
don't.
we? So
Mm.
in effect, that
It's-
committee isn't populated either.
No, it's not.
Or
correct.
subgroup
It's got no
or-
members
No,
at the
it
moment.
isn't. Can I say that that's not for this meeting?
Mm.
I appreciate we're raising a lot of issues, but they're not all for this meeting. I'll be a bit brutal and say it's revenue on a mouton.
I'm happy that we change the word personnel group to HR committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the council, full council, shouldn't have overall managerial responsibility or alterations to corporate staff structure. I mean, those seem to me to be quite important issues that I would expect a committee to bring to full council.
See?
Well, that's a delegated power remit, isn't it?
Yeah.
What?
No,
I
I'll pick it up more, Christina. Sorry, Peter.
Mm.
Yeah, Peter. Sorry, you were saying.
No, I
I
finished saying, that I think taking the point right, and if we establish a human resources committee, then the powers and delegations that are given to them need to be documented,
Yeah.
and so some of the important decisions that you were just talking about there, would still need full council.
So what we're saying is, I think, is that the role of this HR committee does need to be clarified. The membership clarified at the moment because it's all over the place and we haven't got chairs. So I'll put that in the minutes. But at the moment we're going to change this. Christina, you were trying to make a point.
Yes, it's my understanding that any staff restructuring as such would actually be a proposal from the HR group to full council, and that the full council has to make that decision. From what I've followed, to be honest, I think my understanding is that the HR group, whatever we call them, is more about the day-to-day management and about putting proposals together to full council rather than actually making restructuring decisions on their own. I may be wrong, but that's how I understand it.
The other part of this is anything that requires expenditure, any committee or a group would have to have delegated authority to do, or otherwise it has to go back to council.
Or SGP.
Okay, can I come back to the point, folks? These are very important things, and I'm trying to capture them in the notes. But we've been asked to look at standing orders, rather than what the HR committee does. If I can be, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but that's what we're here for. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be done. We keep on lifting stones and thinking, oh my goodness. So, and J, can I say J in that one? It says provide objective advice on all matters. I think the sort of omniscient, omnipotent, and just
Have to check that out.
I think, yes, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Well, the only question, the word I want to use on all regulatory matters, because that's one of the key roles of the town clerk.
I suppose my question is, what does the job description say?
Yes.
That's a very good question. We don't have an answer to.
I thought you were currently recruiting,
We are currently recruiting.
and I presume that that must have had a job description.
Yes, there was a job description.
So is this consistent with the job description? Would be my question.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not on that committee.
I don't know the answer, but I can find out, we can find out.
What do you want to do? Depending on what we find out, should we confine it to regulatory matters? Provide objective advice on regulatory matters.
Advice.
Can we check?
Depends on what it needs or get.
Can we check what the job description of the
Yeah, that's
of the town clerk is, and make sure this accords with
yeah.
Yes.
accords with that?
Or if it doesn't, you know why.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
I will check on that and make sure that this.
Yeah, there will be a formal words won't there, Nick, and it's about being consistent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. 3. Right. Okay. Moving on. Any other points, folks? We've got section 3 now, the structure of the council. Any comments? 311. 312.
I think sorry,
Go ahead, please.
314.
Oh, could I do it in strict numerical order, please?
Yeah.
I've got something on 312 where I just wonder if we should, each committee should have a number of members determined by the council such that it can effectively conduct its business and achieve a quorum. If it's unnecessary to say and achieve a quorum, by definition you should have enough people, but
Yes.
I just thought it was something that was missing. You need and achieve a quorum.
Yeah.
Because people are going to inevitably be off, ill, on holiday, etc.
I don't know why this is necessary at all.
Yes.
The whole thing.
No, I would disagree, it doesn't need to be there. Because to achieve a quorum, you need no more members than would give you a quorum.
Yes.
Yeah.
You may want to take a judgment
Okay.
on the number of people who are involved and how much
Yes.
for different
Yeah, that's
committees.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we include it.
Yeah.
Christina.
Yep, sorry, I've just pulled up the advert for the town clerk if anybody wanted to see it.
Right. Down it goes to that level of detail.
So,
You just do a word search on regulatory.
this is on the
Yeah, that's on the website.
STC website.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Do you want to do it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
So we're leaving that and achieve quorum.
And achieve.
Oh, here we are.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
313, anyone?
So can I just play in? So one of the bullets of the role is advising the council and committees on the legality and correctness of actions and policies.
Which is regulatory matters.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Excellent.
So I think that
I would have used the words in the
and
Yes.
and interpretation of standing orders in order that this now gets a bit speaky. In order that a first class system of governance is established. So I think that's very relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. 3-1.
So we're gonna add that word in here.
at least a second.
We can do to replace.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yes.
Okay, we can just lift them as required.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Christina. Right, 313. I think 314. I think you had something, did you, Martin?
Well, I think it leads to confusion and that we should be clear what is the procedure for electing the chair of the committee, or nominating the chair of the committee. And this leaves it open.
What would you propose?
I mean, there are two different systems here, but I think we have to choose which we prefer. I don't really have strong views which way it goes. I know that the first route, in other words, chair being elected at full council, is more usual where there are groups within the council. So the idea is to make sure
political group.
each group has a slice of the cake. In other areas, I mean, particularly at our level, I think it's very often the members of the committee who feel that one of them is particularly gifted in that area. I don't know. I think it's something where we should be clearer than the existing draft.
To me, it makes more sense for the council to appoint the chairs of its committees.
I agree.
And I thought it was normal practice, but the mayor said, oh no, that's not how we've done it in the past. Even though that's what our standing orders say we do. And you're in the problem that if you don't appoint the chair at the annual town council meeting and you wait for a committee to happen, then you've got no chair.
And that's the position
Yes.
I would certainly see it being done at the annual town council meeting, and then the council deals with any changes subsequently, and if the committee comes to a conclusion that they would have a better chair, they need to go back to council.
Yeah.
Could I just make, I mean, I understand that point, but the experience we've had this year, I've never been a councillor before, so I don't know if this is typical or not, is that few people were proposed for committees. Some said yes, some said no.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very difficult, unless you have prior agreement onto the full membership of a committee, that you can necessarily elect a chair who is going to be acceptable to all members of that committee. That's the concern that I do have. If we want to be open and transparent about it.
It is difficult, Ian, isn't it? It's chicken and egg, isn't it? The
It
sense
is,
that
yes.
you want to have the committee members available,
Yes.
and then from that you need to find a chair. So it's how you get to that conclusion.
And what would be the downsides, the practical downsides and the democratic downsides of a committee deciding its own chair once the committee has been established? I don't know. I've not been on any of these committees, so I don't know.
I would say the practical issue for me would be, what are you going to know when you have your first committee meeting that you didn't know as a council, as to who would be the best chair?
Well, that's a very valid point. I think in this particular year we've got so many new people and
I repeat my question.
No, but from my point of view, I think that by actually giving the mayor the power to appoint a chairman of a committee or a chair of the committee, the council, the power to it may influence the selection of the committee, so that when the people are on the committee, they're not prepared to work with the person that's been
It's interesting, isn't it? It is chicken and egg here, isn't it? So how do we?
I thought our existing standing orders or arrangements were that the committees appointed their own chair.
Yes, that's right.
No,
Why not?
the existing standing orders say that the annual town council meeting will appoint the members and chairs.
members and chairs, yes.
That's not what, sorry, what I'm saying is, by practice, that's
By
not what we're
practice,
doing.
that was my understanding.
So we've just said in 311, the council at the annual town council meeting shall appoint such committees necessary, confirm their remit, their terms of reference, level of authority, meeting dates and membership. Does it say at the annual town meeting they appoint the chair?
No, exactly, and that's what we are doing, Bob.
Mm.
But what we're not doing is the chair election.
I think it's in the terms of reference of committees that the council approve, where it says that the chairs are appointed by the council.
Interesting.
I may be misremembering. It's not a statutory thing, no.
No,
Okay.
it's to me it's more practical and
Yeah.
the actual working of the meeting. If the chair is unacceptable to many of the members, there's a problem.
How about we delete at the annual town council meeting?
Well,
No, I think it's right that the governance results at the town council meeting, that we agree that the committees exist, we agree that who will be on those committees. I think the sticking point, Martin, is about when does the chair
Yes.
be created? Is it then, which I think we're struggling with, because the practice is that we do it when the committee gets together and actually from its membership elects the chair.
Let us say otherwise.
Look, the council needs to be able to set up other committees during the course of the year, and that, you know, you could strictly say you've got to wait till the next annual
Yes.
town council meeting before you can set
Actually,
up a...
it doesn't, no, it's not that you have to do it at the annual town council meeting, that the council does it, and normally it's done at the annual town council meeting. Particularly in an election year, that's important because you don't know who the councillors are going to be.
well, let's do this, if I can suggest that, is we are very clear that the committees are set up, the remit of the committees, and terms of reference, level of authorities, meeting dates, are all clear on 311.
Yeah.
So that stays. I think the way that 314 is worded is that gives us the option to do either.
Okay, yes.
I would prefer, but that's only because I'm ignorant of these matters, that the committee decides on its own chair. We are, at the end of the day, a parish council, not sort of the Corporation of London. Except, you know, when you've got a large city like, say, Sheffield or Liverpool, then you've got party political issues coming up. One hopes that we don't have in this town council. My suggestion would be to say, 314, I would suggest you add, unless a committee chair, I would add the word committee just for clarity, unless a committee chair has already been elected, and then you just carry on with the rest of that sentence. Would that be acceptable to people?
Okay.
Our existing terms of reference say the chair of each committee will be elected at the June council meeting.
That is confusing because
Which is not the actual
no, it's confusing because
confusing.
the advice of the officer at the time was that the annual town council meeting was happening in June, which actually is not even within the legislation.
No, it's May, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, they have to say
But that was why the June date was mentioned. It's supposed to be the annual town council.
But had it wasn't done, then they had to put that in because it was too late.
Well, what do we want to recommend, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really meet my concern, but I think we can happily take this in the report to the full council and say, well, do you want to fix one system or the other, or leave it open to both?
It's not statutory,
No.
you can decide which you want to do, but you just need to be consistent
Yes.
Yes.
through this and all the other documents.
Yeah.
Well, I think the existing one, doing it in the June meeting, just really confused the picture.
That is really
It's
confusing.
the
Yes.
ACT.
But it should read as the annual town council meeting.
Okay.
So either that or the committees
Yep.
appoint their own chairs.
Do you want to mark the document in or just put a note on the document?
I think we want to have that additional committee, and I think we want to. Do we want to highlight?
Been elected at the full council.
Yes.
You want me to put a note on it?
No, I think put a note on that because that's a note for discussion, isn't it?
Okay,
Thank you.
discussion outside this council meeting.
Okay. 315, 316, any comments? 32, I have a comment on 321, but others may have a comment as well. Any comments on 321? Okay, I've suggested if a committee is no longer required to fulfil its stated terms of reference, the full council may vote to disband the committee, you see, and reserve its powers or disperse its powers and duties to other committees.
Allocate or attribute.
Disperse, allocate.
Disperse, this is the wrong word.
I've only got higher English. So you take out disperse. Or reserve the powers now, yes. I'd be content with that. 3, 2, 1, content? Okay. Any other comments? Thank you, Peter. 322, 323. Any comments on 3.3, appointment of non-councillors to committees? I have a comment on 332B. The comment I've got as a comment is, I'm not sure we're geared up for this at present. Suggest we replace it, can substantiate particular specialist expertise because they've been subject to a selection process. I don't think we're geared up for that at all. Would it be? I mean, I was being twice late at night, I should stress. Subject to a selection.
It's a moot point in the sense that selection process can be so light touch. It is about identifying the person who comes in and saying we're happy to have that person join the committee, I suppose.
And they have them there.
Christina?
Don't co-optees have to be approved by the governing body for the committee? So I mean that for committees that would be by full council, and for working groups that would be by whichever body set up the working group, which might be a committee or full council.
So where does this go? Sorry, you've lost me there. What section is it under B?
So this is about non-council members, isn't it? Non-councillors. So it's 332.
And it will affect the quorum because in some instances they count towards the quorum and in others not. So in the terms of
reference,
reference,
it's a subcommittee or a working party. Yes.
yes, exactly.
That's the difference.
It
I
is.
was only half listening, but presumably also affects voting rights.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we come back to that? That's contained elsewhere, please. So we're staying with section B as is. Yes.
I think
Right.
so.
Yep. Running forward. 335. I just added a bit at the end. Registrar register of non-council members entering the register and the next place maintained by the proper officer. I just think that can be quite tricky. We may bring somebody in for a particular expertise, but to have a full register of interests, I think is, to my mind, getting over bureaucratic. What did others think?
So in terms of how it's drafted currently, it suggests it's not a legal requirement.
Yes, that's correct.
So we can start from the point of why would we want to do that?
Exactly. Why do we want to do that? They're obliged to declare
Yes.
any interests. I don't see why they then.
That's probably enough.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
so. That suggests then can we delete 335?
I mean, it says earlier on, doesn't it, have declared any
Yes,
interest? So,
yes.
yeah.
It's very clear, yes,
Yeah.
under section C of 332,
Yeah.
have declared interest pecuniary or otherwise.
Yeah.
Christina?
Would you not want to keep a register anyway, but that didn't include the interests, perhaps? I'm just thinking in terms of if the proper officer needs to get in touch with co-optees for whatever reason.
I don't think
I don't know.
I think it would be correct for the proper officer to keep a register of non-councillor members of committees.
Yes.
But
For
just take
contact
out
details.
including registered interest and expertise.
Say again, please.
Take out the
Take out.
wording including registered
Mm.
interest and expertise.
Yeah. Yes.
So the proper officer will keep a
Yes.
register of non-council members of committees.
Because for each meeting that they come to, Christina, as you know, that question is always asked, isn't
Mhm.
it? So any agenda items that they do have a
Yeah.
conflict
Fair,
with
Yeah.
any
fair point,
interest.
thank you.
Okay?
Right. Okay, moving on. I'm sure you're the only one, so I keep on raising things here. I have in 342, I've got how does one actually start the process? As to my reading, 342 slightly contradicts 341.
Mm.
I've never seen this before.
No, I'm confused by this. When we're talking about an individual, what do we mean by an individual? It's obviously not a councillor, but what's the scope of an individual?
That's true.
An individual, well, it could be a lay member, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I think what it's trying to say is if something is proposed,
Yeah.
then a councillor is going to kind of champion that and take ownership of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reading from it.
It's not statutory, and
It's
it's
not
not
statutory.
now.
No.
So
It doesn't.
what's the circumstance of how that might happen in
Yeah.
a committee's activity?
Sorry, Christina, yes?
I was just going to say, if we're talking about individuals who are not councillors, let's say members of the public,
Yes.
it could be that they need some assistance with drafting the proposal
Yeah.
into a document that would be a format acceptable by a committee. So perhaps that's something that a councillor or an officer could assist that member of the public with. And if we perhaps extend that into thinking about perhaps disabled people
Yeah.
who might need some support, then,
Yeah.
then I can see how that would come into play.
Agree completely, but that sort of stays in what it's saying at the moment. In all circumstances, a mentor will be given. That's how I would interpret that. But
Yeah.
I think it's case by case. Sure,
Yes.
I think that's right, yes.
some people will be very confident
Yeah.
to propose something in the way that they want to propose it, rather than being told you've
Absolutely.
got a mentor. Yeah.
No,
Too prescriptive. it might
they'd
be.
see that as restrictive, I
Yeah.
think.
So would a way forward be, if appropriate, a proposal will be assigned a councillor's elector, if appropriate,
Yeah.
and that leaves it
Yeah.
open.
I don't like if appropriate.
No, no.
I'm sorry.
I think if for me, and it's contradictory in the sense that a councillor might be given a mentor
Yeah.
into how it's currently drafted. So I think it's any individual can request the help and support of the councillor if they feel it's necessary.
Way of doing it.
It's making
Well,
Yeah, I think that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I think all proposals is much too inclusive.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can we change individual to resident?
Yeah. And that's
I mean,
what
it goes way beyond
Mm.
anything that I've seen before. doesn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah.
describing an attitude rather than
yes,
a process.
it is.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem to fit easily with standing orders, which
No.
is all about governance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that I think that is true, but I think one of the other things that we're repeatedly saying is we're trying to make the council much more open.
Agreed. I'm not sure this is the place.
No. And sorry,
Fair
Christina,
point.
hopefully, maybe it was in
I think it's quite a good thing. It's a good thing for the council to do,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not sure whether.
But if you go
it's
back to 3.41, that's quite encompassing. But actually,
Well, I was talking about the whole 3.4 section.
oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to take out just one section of the section.
Yeah. Okay, Christina, please.
I wanted to say, when referring to members of the public, I think that if we talk about electors or residents,
Yeah.
then that actually is a little bit restricted.
It is.
I would prefer it to say members of the public, because if we think about it, people who own businesses,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's not necessarily a resident. And if we think about councillor qualification itself, you don't have to be a resident within the ward to be a councillor for it. So why should the restriction be greater
Yeah.
for people who want to speak than it is for the people that are representing
A
them?
good example is Bet's Hanger, and we've had presentations to the town council from people outside
Mhm.
the Sandwich defined boundaries. But just it's an important issue.
Well,
Well, yes.
if you were to adopt something like this, I look forward to seeing how you deal with the request from Stop Oil
Good
for a
question.
proposal to one of your committees.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
reading this, you would have to help them do it.
You would.
You would. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, when I
Not that I've got anything against Stop Oil.
No, no,
It's
but-
it's
an
just
But we could think of some unpleasant groups that might want to do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw this, I put it in or left it in. I thought the idea is right.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether this is the right place for it, but I'd like to see somewhere
Yes.
the council somehow making clear that we're prepared to assist
Public engagement sounds the right thing.
people
And that was my
if
point.
they have problems and they want to present something to us.
Yeah.
But maybe this is not the place for it.
Martin and then Christina.
I think this may be intended to reflect a process which does happen with Parliament, where people bring proposals to MPs,
Yeah.
then the MPs and parliamentary staff work with
Yeah.
someone from the public
Yeah.
to turn it into a bill. I'm not sure it's really appropriate here, but I agree with Nick that, it's a common phrase, that it will help if we leave something, however permissive, however, if appropriate and where suitable or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, all proposals to me, that's
Okay,
good.
thank you. Christina?
I'm just thinking really about the scope of what members of the public might be, and if it were the same qualification criteria as for councillors, then to me that would appear fair. But that's just my opinion.
Well, the criteria for council is that you either live within the boundaries or within 4.6 kilometres,
Or you have a
Business
business.
interest.
or you have a business,
Yeah.
or you have
Or you
land.
work.
Sorry?
Or you work in the town.
You work, yeah.
No, you
Mhm.
won't.
That would do. Yeah. Right.
So, yeah,
So what do we want to say?
yeah, that's.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah. What are we trying to achieve again by this section that we feel is missing elsewhere?
I think the issue is not. I think we want to be open, and I think Nick, you made that point that we want to have this open, whether the right place or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, we don't want to have somebody from I don't know, completely different authority with a completely different agenda to have this, because this is a town council issue, There will be issues over which the town council should have either some influence or have some direct control. And that is severely limiting, clearly, because we're not the business of stop oil, because we're not doing a lot of fracking in the middle of the town.
Is there a better place it could go rather than the standing orders?
Well, in that case, Peter, do you want to could you take a note? This is, I put a note on here.
There's a definition required for a member of the public.
Yeah, and there's the second thing is this whole proposal from the committee in the right place?
So I would be asking Ian, if I wasn't in this group, is where do you think it might sit?
I don't know.
Public participation.
Okay.
Well, I was going to
Good
say,
stuff.
There's a public participation protocol.
we have a right to
discussion.
participation protocol.
That seems
We
only
have a
for this sort of
Yeah,
thing.
it does.
be a better
This sounds the
place.
worst possible place to put it.
Yeah.
Because you're just opening yourself up to challenge
Yeah.
all sorts of people
Yeah.
that you're not following your proper governance if you
Yeah.
then
Yes.
decide that something isn't.
So,
Got there.
Am I glad I asked the question?
Yeah.
Right,
So that's
thank you.
deletion of the whole.
I'm conscious of time, folks. It is now 22. I'm afraid I do have a strict deadline. I have to leave just after 12 o'clock. I'll take another 5 minutes discussion, then we need to decide where, when, who, and so on for the next meeting. Any other points then? Section 4, there's the statutory bit under 4.1. There's a good bit of statutory 4.2, which in fact, until we get to, I just wonder on 4.2.4, is it permissible to add something to the statutory? But obviously it's in lowercase and it needs to be distinguished. People are laughing. No wonder I can't see. In a year which is not an election year, delivery by the chair and vice chair. 424B.
Form.
And all. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Any other points on 4.2? 4.3?
Sorry,
Yes.
4.24 is the equivalent of something well known to Christina,
Yes.
which is 5J,
Yes.
our current one.
Yeah.
And I suppose I ask, why are we taking out of our current things that we do at the annual town council meeting,
Yeah.
information about our insurance, our inventory,
Yeah.
our arrangements with our local authorities,
Yeah.
something that I've written down and can't read now.
No, that
Three
was-
different, our minutes,
Yeah. No, that was
terms of reference and standing order and whatever 18 and 20 are. I can't-
Yeah.
So we seem to have
Yeah.
document, I mean, it's not statutory.
Yeah.
So you do what you like. My other question on section 4.2 generally is, why is it called the statutory annual meeting, where earlier we call it the annual town council meeting, which is what I've normally known it as. My worry is that there is also a requirement for a statutory annual meeting of the town, which isn't a council meeting.
The annual town meeting, what we call the annual town
So,
meeting.
which is the statutory annual meeting?
Well, can I come back to your first point first, please? Nick, you had a comment.
Well, I was going to make the same comment as Bob on this, as to, this is really a shortened version
Right.
of our standing order J, whatever it is. And do we want to put in what we have at the moment, or do we want to put in omit some of that, which this presupposes, because Bob's been through the areas which aren't included. And the question is, are we happy to do that, or do we want to stick with what we've got at the moment?
What do folks think? I'll come back in a moment. Christina, I'll come back in a moment. What do others think?
fine for me. This is fine for me.
Why would anyone want to admit it is what I'm thinking, because if it's not picked up here, it's not picked up anywhere, and we will lose transparency on that, and we may lose the actual reviews. They may not happen if they're not listed.
I would make one other comment. I hadn't understood why Christine was so exercised by this until I actually looked at it and saw this is really sensible. At the first meeting of the council of the year, tell them what their insurance is, what assets they own, what their standing orders are. They may know, but that's fine. But if they don't, that's the opportunity to tell people that all of these things you ought to know exist for the way you operate over the next year. And if you're a new councillor or an election, it's even more important.
Valuable.
Okay.
I would favour that we kept what we have at the moment.
Okay, so reinstate what we've got. Could you give Peter the wording, please? Okay.
Is it this?
It's in our existing, as per our existing standing orders.
In J, section J.
Yes.
This,
Okay.
Yeah, it
This
sets
list.
out all the things that have to be done at the.
So we want,
at the town
so
council.
what you're saying, remove A2I and replace with this list here.
J, whatever it is,
Yeah.
1, 2.
Come in. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Christina?
I would add one additional item, which is the working groups. So we've got the committees, forming the committees, but it doesn't include working groups, because at the time that we reviewed the standing orders, the working groups didn't exist, because they came, that concept was formed a month or two later. So we've got working groups now that we haven't reassigned membership to, because it wasn't done at the same time. It will just have to be picked up, but if it was included on the list, then at least we'd be aware of it and hopefully assign some members.
The concern I have about that is that working groups inherently are going to be called at short notice and will finish perhaps after 2 meetings. I think so that needs to be modified a bit to existing or continuing working groups. I don't think you could do more than that.
No, absolutely. It's just that I'm aware that we had a few that are still open and still active, but they haven't had membership assigned to them. So they're... well, I don't know.
We don't know.
I agree with you. You know, I think there was an opportunity to, at the council meeting, they should have said who was the personnel subgroup.
Yes.
You know, that should have been, you know, stated at at our first meeting in May. They should have said who was on the Maddox working group. They should have, you know, so that I think there was a few.
I think that's right. But then,
so I agree with you.
So, sorry, just to be clear, we're not talking about members of working groups being reappointed. It's just information, is it?
Well, I think, you know, we went through a big table to give everybody responsibility for outside bodies and so forth, and I think the working groups should have been included in that, to be honest.
Yes, I think that's right. I would agree.
Right, Christina.
So I'll put working groups on.
Right, folks, it's 1:45. I've got a strict time limit I've got to adhere to. We need to, I presume, we certainly haven't finished. We've got a little way to go.
We are making progress.
We are making progress if you get a micrometer, yes. When do we want to meet again? The 15th is not, that's next Thursday, it's not a good day for me in the morning. Yeah, it's definitely not a good day for me. I can do the afternoon. I'm just thinking of notice periods and everything else, because if we don't tell the town clerk today, or the acting town clerk rather, we're going to be banjaxed again in notice.
Friday, Saturday, Monday.
And when are you suggesting?
Well, could we do it on either the Wednesday or Thursday afternoon? I think working more that frequently in the weekly is not on personally, but I mean, I think we need to keep the momentum up. We're going weekly.
Yes, I do, agree.
And then that allows us the following week, commencing the 19th, to pull whatever we've got together to give it to the full council, because those papers will be issued on the 21st, I think. I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
this momentum.
Momentum.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agree.
Yes.
I have to do school runs, so
Yes.
Yeah.
Avoid the time. Avoid a particular
Mm.
time span.
I don't know what time you were thinking of when you say afternoons.
Well, that's up to us folks. I mean, we're not supposed to have a meeting on licensed premises, but I was going to suggest somewhere else. But
Can we not do 1:45 to does 2:45 prevent you?
That would be
being here?
fine.
can I just check on my...
That's
So it
just
is
about on my limit, quarter
Yeah.
to
And
three.
it just about is in the afternoon. If we start.
So we're suggesting 12:45, are we? To 14:45. Would everybody be able to make that, do we think?
Martin, what do you think? It looks like you might be
Next
grimacing.
Wednesday.
Is that okay?
No, Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, no, I think I could do
Is
that.
that a problem, Martin?
I may be late. I'll check.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, that okay. Just trying to think, what else do we need to cover? I mean, I think, although progress is slow, I think we are making progress. The difficulty is throwing up so many items that need to be covered as well. You know, like participation. What does this mean? What does that mean? I'm happy with what we've had so far, and that Peter circulating the track changes approach I found extremely useful.
Yeah.
I do urge folks, if you have the time, please, to do what the sort of things I've been doing, which is actually going through and saying, what about this? This doesn't seem to be consistent. I didn't think we thought that might be something we could do. But I appreciate we're all busy people. Some of us on numerous other committees, working parties, etc., etc. Any comments, any issues that we would have, anything we want to do to improve?
I think we're doing the best we can.
Well, this is a working meeting, and I think we have been working on
Yeah.
this. You know, maybe we've not made as much progress today as you'd hope, but I think it's been useful.
Well, some of them are fundamentals, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think we may have been stuck discussing some issues, but I think they were actually worth
Yeah.
discussing.
And I don't think there's any other way of doing it other than I think it's really good now that Peter, you've got this installed. That's a really helpful way
Yes,
of doing it.
thank
Seeing it,
you.
you know, in front of us.
Well, any comments that I mean, you've just seen us in action, I think, in detail for the first time. Any suggestions for improvements and so on?
Yeah, focus on critical principal
Yeah.
things. Don't worry so much about the fine tuning of wording. Because the chances are, once you've agreed it all, nobody will look at this unless there's a problem.
Yeah, very true.
Except, well, there's one person who look at it.
I wonder who that might be. Okay.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you.
thanks for your contributions. And Christina, thank you for yours as well.
Yes.
And we'll see how the live stream has actually worked.
It's worked. Yeah, that's worked.
It has worked.
Okay, Peter, thanks for all your hard work in getting this out to us.
IT solution.
Okay, folks, thank you very much. Thank you.
Meeting closed.
Thank you.